Hi there guys, in this video I'm going to talk about the X4 presentation video we saw a few days ago. Now this was the first time we've actually seen any footage from X4. Now if you don't know what X4 is, we had a while back we had Beyond the Frontier, which was one of the first games. That was quite a few years back. Then we had X2, X3, then we had Terran Conflict, and then finally Albion Albatron. Now that was the X series as such, but then Egosoft in some ultimate wisdom tried to change the formula quite drastically and they come up with X Rebirth. I felt some of the design decisions they made didn't really make sense in that game, and some things were just overcomplicated for the sake of things. Eventually this meant that I had dropped support for the game and obviously moved on to Elite and Dangerous. Hopefully this time Egosoft have learnt from Rebirth and actually have made some better decisions. But anyway, so let's have a look at some of the key points in their presentation, and I'm going to give you some of my opinion on it. Bear in mind, like I said, I know everybody's going to have their own opinion, and this is only my opinion essentially. So if you disagree with anything, please let me know below. I'll be very interested to hear from you. So the first thing I want to talk about is graphics, and I know graphics are not the most important thing in a game. However, if you start asking for AAA money, then I do expect the graphics to be fairly good. Now I don't actually know the price of this game, so they could go for something different, but I would gather they would go for AAA sort of money. So this time Egosoft have decided to ditch the DirectX route and have decided to go for something called Vulkan. This potentially allows the game to be ported to other operating systems, if not even consoles. But at the moment I don't see this graphics actually being a lot better than the Rebirth engine. Essentially I think this is exactly the same engine doing the game. Obviously they have modified the game quite a bit, but essentially I was a little bit disappointed there wasn't more changes to the graphics side. Hopefully this time as well they haven't used modeling programs that were inaccessible to most people out there. This potentially limited their mods that they could be created. Obviously you could choose things like stat changes, but to add your own ships and things like that was very complicated, as you had to use programs that cost absolutely thousands of pounds. Hopefully Egosoft haven't used that, but if this is based on the same engine, they could potentially have done that. It does look exactly the same to me as Rebirth. The interior sections as well, I'm not too sure if that was a good move either, as I don't think Egosoft quite have the manpower to do that section, and even in games like Elite and Dangerous we don't really have any sort of walking around section still, and obviously Elite and Dangerous does have quite a bit more money behind it. So all this is only based on the alpha footage we saw a few days ago. Potentially things could change between now and the actual final release. However, with my previous experience with Rebirth, I don't think that would be the case. I did see the game 6 months before the actual final release, and in that time only things were being added. As you can see here, there is quite a lot of assets here already. I don't see them scrapping all this and rebuilding it. That would take quite a lot of work on Egosoft's part. So really I would think what we see here is going to be what we're going to see in more or less the final release. I could be completely wrong with that, and if I am I will let you know. But for the time being the graphics look okay for me, but they're not that brilliant. But anyway, let's have a look at the next point. So on to the first major point, which is the ability to change ships. Now I think this is pretty much a requirement of a modern space sim. Not being allowing you to change ship was a serious oversight in my eyes. This also left to a lot of imbalancing issue to the game. Essentially the Albion Skunk, which is the ship you flew, had to take on anything from fighters all the way up to big capital ships. This was also not aided by the thing that once you get near a capital ship it kind of pulls you with it. So potentially you could sit in the blind spot of a capital ship indefinite and just keep hammering away. Sometimes it could take 15-20 minutes and you actually destroy a capital ship with a little kind of ship, and I felt that was completely imbalanced. But it was the way that it had to be done because one ship you were stuck in. So hopefully this should not be so much of an issue when you've got the ability to change ships. Hopefully this is going to be executed correctly, like I said, and like I said there's... But anyway, we'll have to see how that one goes. Definitely, like I said, it is a step in the right direction. So on to my second point, which is station building. Now this was something that was kind of dumbed down in Rebirth, as you had to actually build it in a certain way. Now this time they've gone back on that decision, and you can basically put whatever you want where you want, I think. Until you actually get your hands on it, it's really quite difficult to tell. But this should potentially allow you to customize your own complex, something that was done in the X3 games, essentially not particularly that well, as it kind of impacted performance quite badly, but it would allow you to kind of make your own installations there. Like I said, I'm not going to go into that too deeply, as I'm not 100% sure on it at the moment. So on to the third point, which is the universe. Now this is something difficult to comment on without actually playing the game yourself, but essentially here you can see the areas are still sectioned up. Unfortunately we still have highways, which I'm not the biggest fan of. I felt they kind of forced ships all into the same area. So essentially I think spaces should be about freedom, and highways do the kind of opposite thing to that. They also kind of look a little bit ugly in space as well, having these giant rings. I think later on in the add-ons they kind of made space a bit more open essentially, but like I said, anyway, so another thing they've sort of tried to do on here is to show you where you can buy and sell stuff, and that was another big thing for me that I didn't like in Rebirth, which was the trade deals. Now these were something you could actually find on a station, and like I said, they were open up for like 24 hours or an hour I believe, and you had to go and find where to buy and sell things, and it all made it very much complicated than it should be. I'm always in the believer that you should go to a station A, buy something, fly to station B and sell it. So hopefully that is something they have changed in X4. As you can see here, there looks like something here to buy and sell, but whether you can do it in your own ship, I guess that's be the case. But until you actually get your hands on, it's really kind of difficult to talk on that one. So anyway, that's my quick look at the X4 presentation video and some of my thoughts and suggestions on it. Of course, your own beliefs are going to be different, and I'd be very interested to hear from you guys what you think on some of these points. Myself, I would say I was a little bit underwhelmed by it, to be honest. It did seem to have quite a lot of remnants from X Rebirth, which is something that I wasn't over keen seeing. Maybe those are just things that have been left over, as this is all based on alpha footage, and until you can actually go and play the game yourself, you're not going to be able to actually see how the core mechanics of the game have changed. Hopefully they have changed quite a few things, as I felt Rebirth kind of screwed up some of the core elements. Now the X games are basically based on 4 different things, so the build aspect, obviously they have done something there, and it does mean, by the looks of it, you can actually build components of the station where you like. That was something I was very lacking in Rebirth. The trading side, hopefully they have changed that as well. I really did not like the trading in the previous X-Birth, as I felt it was completely confusing. Before you had to find like trade deals and then send ships there, then tell them to buy things and then sell them, and it was a lot to do with micromanagement really. I prefer it when you can actually take your own ship there, buy something and then sell it at another station. So hopefully that has changed, and we didn't really get to see that. The fighting aspect, well, with the changeable ships, hopefully the balancing issue should no longer be the issue, as like I said before, they had to allow one ship to take on all. Hopefully that's also something that has been changed. As for exploration and going exploring the map, potentially it should allow you to do a bit more. Highways were very conformative, and I think definitely it was the right decision to back them off. Like I said, how much they backed them off we won't be able to see. Like I said, all this is only based on the alpha footage, and the alpha footage we saw was only what Egosoft wanted to show us, and until you can actually get your hands on it and see those elements in their core, we can't really comment in full. But it might be an interesting title to see how this one develops. For the moment, I would definitely hold off and see what happens. So anyway, that's my thoughts and suggestions on the footage that we saw. Hopefully it was a fair and unbiased opinion, as I'd hate to think I've lost my integrity. I started creating these videos way back because of Rebirth, and I felt there was quite a lot of things being said. So I wanted to go onto YouTube and actually give you my opinion on things. Whether you guys are actually interested in X4 or just me covering Elite and Dangerous, as I've said, been covering Elite and Dangerous content for quite a while now. Like I said, I would like you to let me know below if you're interested. If you are, I'll post some more stuff in the future. If you're not, like I said, I'll carry on with the Elite and Dangerous stuff. Anyway guys, I think that's it for the time being. Take care and have fun out there.